Ha sráidin na halabe bhí agaloch do lúg bicycle son imig bliana, le duine atá carichin mar gói fanse Michael. Sé cútegin dána hidjimach a bicycle na sráidin tranga a ha seo, a cha cúsin na gaharochuch. Ha nádat de gúine a ha dolad bicycle sír dolaméid, le duine a cuad bicycle mar gói na siar bhí fanse Michael a bhela. Ach, a bhelar a dhéanú go leor son an duine a ha gíorí a léhid a dhéanú, agus a bheil fáilteora na stráidin seo. Ann sa program seo ha sin a cuad rí na dóin ann sa bheil rothadach an an malabe a gathrachuch, agus bríne sin risinnein a ha cúpad go ddíchiloch son go bhí áte ag bicycle an an malabe ans na blionna chin rí hían. Tras sa bading tuh siar Glascow, ha Bruce White agus a bheith Connell a dolad an bicycle tros sráidin rang fartig. Chanelach ad a bhig de gúine a ha fudoch an Glascow a ha tuig rothadach mar gói fanse Michael. Chanelach páirstein chóirsteacha falla fo traffic na matne le slia rí tuh an expressway. Agus leis sin, ha Bruce a cumal súl at sa had a glósa tron traffic, son Connell an go scoil Gaelic Glascow an tíide son toiseach an lá scoile.
Ha má go bhfuil slíorách gán ach cheicrún am ha carachan agus taxin is tínasteach agus heit a parkag an san slíorách, so an dói ha níl a sábhairt íide. Leis sin mar a heil mí se cycle léis bhí gesan na dó díirech na causarin a ha mí se smúntin bhil sin na sábhailte stochan nach ile céirsta thuhan lug a cha mí smúntin go bhfuil na sábhailte go cloin agus ha na ráirtin haid caran cúnastoch háast.
As Jay Gianni Cainjoch go bhfuil Connell a fan chun na scoile go sábhailte, ha Bruce a cumal lí go mían na bhela, far a bhfuil a cúpad son unad Glascow son sláintin chlói. Ha iad san na Gianni ráimsochuch agus scrúdach na duluchiad san sláinte an Glascow gos fuasclach éfococh a warag, agus had it cuad go manajoch rí mar a boring rothadach cúteochuch le triplaide na bhela.
Ha sinnéir bhí déanú ránsachuig na thuirid gúine ha cycle isteach go ches hí na bhela gach lá. Agus ha sinnéir a gáil suas casteo an na blianachan ha seachat. Agus so ha coiad go bhfuil barach duine a cyclug. Agus cúil sin ha lesachuig hían na slíon rotharach. Ach an dói a hanil go leor tachars de thuh sin ha díirech gléimheic dé slíon rotharach fallé an sa bhela. An bíag barach gáin ha sin a smúin sin go bíag sin a fechcin tóir a bharach duine a fallah rothar a cyclug. Ha go leor duine a cóiseach an Glascow sé unöver sin nach chill sé balla Caran boch an agus hanún na thuirid gúine an Glascow le carachan. Triplatin an na cúteanna generáin an Glascow cuú le túlag a tín carachan agus basachan. Agus na bíag barach duine cycling na cóiseach machas a chá bhí go déanú dífar gin an aldeach. Han rialtas a cúr príomhachas ga cycling ha amasachcha go bhí déchas a chiad a cycling go láil sin an alaba. Agus ha policy plána son rotharach ag Colla Bhela Glascow. Ach nuair a haisna coit an éirice ha dolasteach gus a bhí déanú défar arabh digún ha cycling hanneog go leor a dólán, ha lesacha gáin an siút agus an seo ha tacharst a channeil go leor a tachars. Agus rútéil a chanan sa go bhfuil múntear Glasgow sealtain go bhfuil a géirí bhí talamh rothar ma han choramachcha.
Ha Frank McVitie os ceann policy rothadach Colla Bhela Glascow. Ha híon go tachar dis mianan ag déal cycles, Far fel at y tord taith don bwyon choirsnoch wheel-being, agus y tord bicycle'n dochloing awn sefale ag nachel moran aragiad.
One of the lessons in Europe that I think we can learn is that everybody is involved in cycling. It's a family activity as well as an individual activity. And that distinction is maybe not as clear here. And I think what we want to do is encourage, mothers and fathers and sons and daughters to feel comfortable getting out on their bikes. When we encourage individuals who take up cycling, we've got to demonstrate the roads are safer. Over the next 20 years, I'd like to see more dedicated cycle lanes to encourage that activity, and so that we can actually have an infrastructure that meets the needs of a future city rather than the city that we've become over the last few hundred years.
Ha pisioch edrych hyn et system rohodog Glascow ans na blion hyn yn cael siachad, le slien agos drochydyn, ach chanelach aster gymagadyd dy lien awn y gyn y groich son rohodog. Ha imedoch jiffer immert steetje et fech alappe son duine y vrosnochug y golad yn bicycle, agos na hake dy gaddasin y chlachig. Tyfa mwy yn velodrom y chai osglwch an yn Glascow fwch yn gaddyd, ha Cycle Scotland et family ride y chwrr doi son parentin y vrosnochug yn cwch chwanya y fi yn sas an yn rohodog. Ha cwch gyn ystragen et tyf sher y fale ed yn dŵnych go carichyn, son cymffaiad siŵl gwsafalch. Len y ciad yn dygynnu y gwael parst et wami chalor an yn Glascow, ha i sialtyn gyfel wy fôr an yn rohodog awn syfale. Ach haast gyfel a dwlich gan hwna tiolwch y fi ffrihalwch tachwrdys yn ielehig.
It's brilliant. Anything that gets them excited about getting out on their bikes is superb, and traffic was a little bit of a concern for them, and when I told them that the roads would be closed and there would be wardens and police and things, they were really excited by it. Even when the rain started this morning, I said, now we might get wet, do you just want to stay at home? And they were like, no Daddy, no, we've got to go and do it. So really pleased that we did. Did you have a good time? That was a yes, but she's cold.
Van la sadafachol le cored 3,000 gile y frihalwch, ach yn cwmys ri dwchon yn ele awns yn rhaenyorbe ha tor o broch ri ianw has. Ha pthiaf fale yn anafar Copenhagen anitje mar yn dy pthiaf falchen rohodog yn teil. Colwch ri Glascow y hyf addef slwy agos miad fale, had het hosog et chaich an y fi sialting mar y swring dy bicycle'n y fi yn clacig mar pthiaf goi siŵl yn atje car. Se Andreas Roll a ha os cion program rohodog y fale, agos han system rohodog hiolog a ha eddersteochug ed miadochug eikin, ons nadef de geunje a ha clacig bicycle'n.
When you get up in the morning and you want to go somewhere, if one alternative you feel is dangerous and it's slower than the other alternative, most people will take the fastest and most comfortable alternative. Of course they will. So the challenge for the cities that wants to promote cycling is to create a quality around cycling in the city that is competitive with the other modes of transport. But if you don't have a good quality all the way from A to B, then the kid don't want to go with the mom, or you don't want to go to work that way. If there's just half a kilometer that's very bad, you don't want to use it. So this is about focusing on coherence and quality all the way from A to B. Sometimes we say there's no cyclist in Copenhagen because everybody's cycling, so it's not a big part of your identity. It's just something you do, and then maybe you are a doctor or you are a fan of punk music or whatever you are, but everybody's cycling. And the infrastructure should be so it is no big deal. It's not an adventure sport or a fitness thing. It's just about getting from A to B in a comfortable, convenient way.
Ha sadafes rohodog an yn Copenhagen na un eisimplat dy falchen jorboch a ha cwch pniafachus edd rohodog mar goi siŵl. Ach far yn Norgaif had dy gamas y fi cwjochwch agos y brosnochwch balchen ele son na hyf polisien y chwyd yn gniaf agos y fi giawsochwch fobe. Ha siom ar farst i yn glwysyd rys yn canad Copenhagen Eis. Ha Bianca Hermansen e cthien y bwyn y sio. Ha no byddeic mar ailtsyde agos niach jalafach i bale edda fi cwtrmoch an fi cwth crw stragen Copenhagen.
Every time the city upgrades the street to fit bicycling, they're modernizing their cities. They are moving towards a 21st century city. So if you're not modernizing your cities like that, then you're not keeping up the pace, right? then you're falling behind in terms of that sort of international push towards how can we create more livable and more sustainable cities for the future. And you have many excuses why this can't happen, right? You have lists of excuses. It's the weather, it's hilly, there's wind, people are lazy, we don't have safe streets, we have air pollution, it's not safe to bike, blah, 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 all that stuff. And so what you end up with eventually is a political discussion. 5 years ago, the situation in Copenhagen, the political discussion we had was very much like any other city. It was sort of the drivers against the bikers. And what you get is you get a lot of media attention in that situation, but you get very little work done.
For chu dat inal county bicycling Sráidin Bhaile an 2009, had it fan amach go bhfuil tríchiad sa sia amachcha sa chiad de húsin go opad nó fálam idan gianú bicycle. Agus go bhfuil 1.2 million kilometer ga gianú bicycle gach.
But it is essentially the difference between a loss and a gain. And when we're talking city economy, that is crucial. We then now today have in Copenhagen is we have an evidence-based decision-making framework. Works get done, it just happens and it happens and it happens. So there's this full momentum that is thriving right now.
So we also look to other countries, other cities to learn in Copenhagen. For example, in Munich, Germany, they did a very clever campaign on how to promote cycling, where we kind of look at it, steal what we think will work in a Copenhagen context and just leave what wouldn't work in a Copenhagen context. We have a lot of cycle tracks built in the 80s where we now have capacity problems on the cycle tracks. So if you go next to your mom or you go next to your friend and you want to have a conversation on your bike, there's not room for it because everybody from the back ring their bell and want to overtake. So we have a lot of places where we would like to see 3 lanes for cycling in each direction. The value, if you believe in these cost-benefits methods, is around 50 pence a kilometer cycle. And that is partly the value for the person self, having a better health, living longer, but it's also money you save in hospital bills, and it's also the workplaces, they have less illness among the employees. So there are a lot of those added effects of cycling that are becoming increasingly important.
Hannes yn eich Glasgow ho eto ialtio fo Valchinella far fel tor deunia a falaf roher. Can aan in Copenhagen no aan in Amsterdam. A mi smöntjig fel in Chija havor an unshore sa Chija haken ha barch kuch gaken gejeraf ach 52 dol chimical ora. Hannes gembige fatten en bjaan en bieg lienrei rohrach gaken no plana son lienrei roharach Navala, agus plana Kimera Vigsion, a Torsion, Gabul, Jane Grave and a game of Vitachar stones here playing a dan of Liana Tressa playing a Shun Shin Horse Gabul, agus Hanyo Shin Aken Has.
Ha imimedoch dinge agus buon a gobad cruai son adrialoch Janu, levi brosnoch rohadach sa valle. Gach mating de saharn ag an bike station a thuh siar Glascow, bí waine de gaine a fehu son chorum na bicycle an aci cheannach. Sé caran na sa haun far a bhfuil bicycle an öst an Gianú an art agus an réich ag prís iasol son gan fai a hula dinge chorum ed rohadach. Sé Greg Chauvet a manager project agus ha eising an station écian a fas go bhí na bhuian mhór dídoch thuhastai 3 bliana.
I only learned to ride a bike 5 years ago. I'm 30 years old. I had a bicycle phobia. I couldn't go on a bike. I would freeze to death. Really scared. And then one day a friend of mine made a bike for me and gave me the bike. And after 6 months having this bike next to me, I decided to go for cycle training. A few months after, I was riding a bike. And at the same time, I was working for corporate organizations and where you'd see your boss sacking someone and buying a new car. And this type of thing, and I really hated my job and I didn't like the way my life was going, so I decided to give it my job and cycle around town. And I arrived in Glasgow 3.5 years ago. It was hell for cyclists for me. I already said many times. I used to be shouted at for cycling on the road. The big issue with Glasgow is it's a car culture city, and you ride a bike when you're a kid, and then if you want to keep on going, you do it as a sport, but you don't go around town on a bike.
Ha an bike station y fiachin di sialting na chailachod dada frisin bicycle y fiacad agus y fi cmat as y iau. Ha dy tafon bw o proch far yn oring dy gynnu sybi y hyn y iawn so chwch yn sgilen a ha i son cmat a siau yn bicycle yn ec pthys torn y slygau na fi tyl edd bw bicycle yn afystioch.
Different with the bike shop and the bike station is that the bike shop, they are mostly made for people who use cycling as a sport. And when you go in there and you try to buy cheap parts, sometimes they're not even looking at you. It's not interesting if you don't want to buy the £2,000 bike. And I believe people should be able to buy a really cheap bike to go around town, which is different. We found out before if you donate a kid a bike, if he needs some money, he's got problematic, not the best life, might sell the bike between 1 week or 2 weeks and get something else. But now we change it. We get the bike to come to spend a week with us and to build his own bike. And the difference is amazing because they just put a value on our bike. And since then, none of them ever sold their bike again.
Bi yn bike station cwjog y ri classicin son torteth clown tosiochwch. Agus biad cwjog y gadjochwch gynnu tro sessionen a ha tort barog tigsigaif mi rohadog. Ha dy tafon cwrle mi fi carag na bicycle yn ac a hen, na'n je calcar y mwyedd yn thraj. Agus y misniochwch gynnu gos rohadog a fi mar fars dy fehe waiol.
Excellent. So although
I think if we got a puncture at the side of the road, we would have half a clue to know how to fix it, which is good. So I think for that reason, I definitely would come back to do something else.
I think the fear is always that something goes wrong and you don't want to ask someone a really basic question like how to fix my puncture. And I think the more places like this exist, the more people hopefully change their car journeys into cycle journeys and more people take up cycling.
Awn yn Copenhagen ha cwlter rohadog y tosiochwch fo eich gyma og. Agus ha bicycle yn eich gachlachig son y hwla rwt y fych edrych ianw le car an yng Glascow. Leis yn sy'n, ha cwtrymog bicycle balle a ha gwprochwch ma y fiacad. Eg recycles a hedda le Henrik Storlan. So ring the bicycle a ha gwprochwch gydoil y fi edrych lesochwch go rwt gyma sohoriche.
My plans for this bike is to do a 2-speed automatic hop, just like sort of like a fixie bike look, but with a coaster brake and the automatic shift. It's a cool, like a clean look. And then the 70s touch with the green, metallic green color. And this, I think I really like this combination. If you can have something that is your own, like a one-off or second-hand or vintage or whatever, it's much more interesting than to have something that the guy next to you are wearing or riding. And it's fun to do. It's much more fun than the same thing over and over. New bikes are in general very dull looking. The coolest thing is to make them something that they use every day. To make them not that super expensive and make them endurance like enough to people can use them for everyday commute. These tires has been in a warehouse for 25 years, I think. So they need some love before they can go. It's a new puzzle every time because we use some parts from one decade and then parts from another decade. And when I visit cities, and due to the fact that I do build bikes now and that's my profession, then I can see why we have this unique thing going on in Denmark. We're kind of hard to impress in Denmark in bike terms because we start off biking when we are able to do it, 5 years old or something. We've only been doing this for a year in this constellation. So if it works out, we are really, really proud and really happy to do that. It will take some years to get tired of that and want to do something else. I can't really imagine what we should do more than what we already are doing. So.
Colch risin danavark agus a bhór chuit de cheanna tuanna bhar Eorpa, ha cultar rothadó cúteach ag an Ólange, a ha doladás gianolíchin, agus a ha táiseach leis a chláin a bhíon sás ag éisce ma óg. Fá glóir siad chuna bhela St. Pert Nuird a Dunégin an na 2000 sa hundiag, réich Cotrina Nicky Legui an Caréice agus cheannachí Backfeeds, bicycle Caracu. Cútear is an díos chláinnice Callum agus Anna, had gomór an sás an san dóid siúl dúteach.
Ha cás na gomór am a bhí ddíireach cleach bicycle ar sanna thuilead a ha mi tíanú fat na húne agus sé rud nátar a hang. Chanurigó sin í anú an Dunégin leis a chlán, ha ráchúnarstach na bheachsa. So, an sin seag sin ha mi taligte furach go seo. A ddíireach a snach a bhí dal na gúirt leis a chláin a Backfeeds. Ha genú differ mór gósa. Ga vacar acam an Dunégin agus richt mi va mi taligte ma chúla chúr reis agus gléhaligte an Backfeeds a cheannach. Gandá seach vegana gra tú wabalé agus chará cósta gíteí a chad gomach leachú is sin list. Tána searna cosseach gaibhsan. Ha hunna in go mar relaxta seo agus ha mi ddíireach a feici in nist chá neurotics a ha daine an an Alpa agus sasin me dhéim chlán. Cha nuad de chlán chleich an sa stráid tuigh. Cha nuad gaibh ddíireach a dal gun arrangements mórí anú go taigh na cáirstenachcha. Agus a seo ha sin hásta tachars. Bha colachí sin gósan ar a bha mi beic an Dunégin. Cha nuad a colachí sin tuigh an Dunégin a ha an cultar sin an cultar gama furasta gama laid back ha sin has down an san Ólange agus ha cósta go mórain.
Ha Glascow gotá ar sealtain go bhfuil jalas sótharíte ach an rothadó, an san leasachach de gadas an spórs léhéid sin velodrome. A chós 100 agus 30 milliún nót agus a ha ar ginolach úr do lúg spórs óg a bhrosnachu. Ag an tachar dis seo a head a chuúrar dói le Cycling Scotland agus a ha taispannach talent óg na Halabe. Chai cúdach a hort do Danny McCaskill cles snúga a chealting ed a bhfuil daine eolach fan a videón animal ige. Ha Danny gyma sadafachol an an sul rothadach agus háisiché gyma óg an san jelan sciahanoch. Far an rotor surseice a bhí dolad a bicycle, a hu ga chorum na scilaneice a lesachuch.
I mean, ever since I got my first bike, I've always been into trying to do tricks on it. You know, I used to cycle it backwards and forwards to primary school every day, and I would have my run on the way home, you know, lots of grass banks and curbs, which I had lined up, and I would, you know, try my different tricks on. I eventually found out what trials was, and I started buying mountain bike magazines, you know, which had some of my heroes in it, such as Martin Ashton and Ryan Leach. And over the years, I used to just sort of look at what they were doing and, you know, try to do smaller versions of this. You know, I wasn't ever going to sort of aiming to do exactly what they were doing. I suppose nowadays, it's quite amazing to be in the position, you know, where I'm able to make these videos, which are going out to, you know, sort of kids all over the world and then hopefully inspiring them to get into biking, which is a really nice feeling and something I never really thought I'd ever get the chance to do. Yeah, I mean, I think there's always been a sort of biking culture in Scotland. You know, I mean, these days it's a lot bigger than it was, you know, when I first started riding. It's really amazing for myself to come to an event like this and have so many kids coming up to you and, you know, basically call, you know, they say that I'm their inspiration for riding and all this kind of thing. Yeah, I think coming off the back of such a successful Olympics, I think it should be really a big push, you know, for cycling around the Commonwealth Games, and it'll hopefully, you know, drive more people to get out on their bikes, and yeah, which is only a good thing.
Lessadafys rohaddoch breithmoch ec na Gemmeln Olympicioch 2020. Ha oigri foedfech a labbe inush brosnochuch a bhílianting an an Gemmeln an Luke Sport anamol an television. Ha Kerry Nikafi a uiste jes na haver dochus son rohaddoch binge. Ha Gianu Tor Traini son a bhí mar farstien skippe son 2020 diag ec Gemmeln a cholaish an Glascow.
Horsich me gama anamach idir bhí roharach ach go forstanach bhí bodanach bí a fast na séir dúach a steí líonachan bhí roharach so ha úneach an háast gus a fáin dúach go bícní.
Ha Kerry jaravig greffiv neach spór a hainte, si gléig in triathlon agus a fan na dúis son rohaddoch time trial ag na gemicin elanoch 2003 an an Bermuda. Hainish a gamas edd na either.
A hannéal ha mi óbs a fortanach an is trílaich ha campusbaring boots ac yn a tor rydyn technical i anu ach an y mountain biking ha dyrf dyn ag yn y nid ac ymai gysyn y ffydyn na patrich ys y balich y hwnda a ys bia cort ddim yn gol ymach gofod i balich cwtioch bia cymffwchta. Ach ha mi gyma nervous mi gyn y jains a ha mi dos go hyn so ha mi gwybod 3 opdrachan han mi trainen goed 3 sa gortig doen wie trainen san mi gaal recovery geleer so besyn gemaak al nervous a gaan mi dagus in een opdrachan na medical yeah mi doen en direct gemaak nervous mi genereket jenne kindje geleer ak maar is knai mi gewoon na reis ach sin games mi janne dra se make break houden sa mi am se toch kan ja met wel gewoon loren met puchtig so koop het gedoe. Ha mo fiúr ha óbsach mag op I General Driver mir war mich hier is chumreich sé ise va General Driver sé sin sa Chile mir war mich hier an Essex sé ise va General Driver sa Chile a is bi ma va has ma ha fiachin den kutche nur haket kutche go go so hat ulik go ma supportive Fysik in meiste dönje ha tupastin donne egal na waten, so ha sin gemaak ma nervous, gemaak trich die dönje aan de carpet en dat go laag nervous te fekken dönje in de bicycle nach. Ha gemaak daar, we moeten 2 points of view ekking. Gaan in gewil boeien de week Victoria Pendleton. Hij gemaak wacht de coin door de stel in jens auctions, en is min gekullet coin so is graag hartig aan jumse wie maar Victoria Pendleton. Ach a legacy ag na Olympics an a mountain biking a gaan in graag go masin ba mi hin gal part in a kwartbis is koers Hadley Park fer van Olympics as hoed mi mag met van hier sin gewille bath glasjes han I dunje in a horse gewille kosk ligt het nacht ga hoes is on Portugal of goersen iachen so had mi katholic sin nog in en a legacy each other had sin each other.
Y ganion chwmas a ha noiciri talontoch a ha an sas an rohaddoch farbesioch na chalabbe. Ha sadafys rohaddoch sy'n nanafarch y chyn po pialsanoch nes cynnyfaliche.
So often around cities in the world you will see mainly students and these adrenaline junkies biking. If you have only these people being the grassroots movement, setting the agenda in terms of the advocacy groups we have, then we're essentially building an infrastructure and a bicycle culture to facilitate these types of uses. And they are not the majority. When I pass one of these guys, I'm like, who are you? Like, you're a human vehicle. You're not a person anymore, you know? Like, I can't relate. You're just as dangerous or alien as the car.
Get nog el moinjer yn anafarch roieol et laikra. Shepthi an fachus a hawn gyfel dynnu gadeikin et stragen na halabus. Do chwnioch chaimpal ha laikra practicioch, agus na chwtiochuch an y fi'n ysbwyau na traffig ec na hamonen ystrange. Gach madding ha I clacach na siawn moenig yn reile son fan giddoch go mian y fale, para fel a gwbydd mar niachloge e cros na cysio. Y ganion na han waib y fi gaharochig edoch. hanna buonochan a bhí dul a bicycle gymasaliad do chwnioch.
A mi idir slí sin agus an fechcin mór an dhéana carigin och ha mi stocha leor a híte tína seach fólíte agus ag fascid or a híte tína a bhas. Be car an ropoch an dú bheith mí charle och an sin go dragorm. A mi dó clé luas mar sin ha mi a fallas orm muna ha mi tína seach. Féin seoir as an office agus ag gascadár. A gú go dragorm stocha na smóna an dúsce. A mi facail a déise acham is na léinechin acham is an office hena sasa déananig sin. An yol was a furastund in éitin a cúsin a caran teann an yol áitcin buring ucht de cúd slíon úr an falla fan na carichin ar son bicycles. Stoch an úr ut de buring ucht díananig is fiachin na cúmal na carichin is becan na slútiche. Och a bhór chuút sin a driver an cléh acatá. Och sé díadach úna na gá a caran faracoch stochan an bicycles a stochan an your gúlar.
Ha dúnéidir is barok I dhéanú na áte sa bí eile an an nalabe do lúg clachaí bicyclein, le cúltar, láidir rothadach agus taith cearst fan chóirle inadol. Ha buan bike station dúnéidir a tuairt na teachadach acasan go sráidin na bhaile, agus ha tríc a cúd stála a dói, a taban cúteochuch agus chóirle an an áteochan colachtaí seo i the promenade an an Portobello. Ha Ian Maxwell the hían son cúteochuch an fan skipa mechanicio, ach ha cúteoch a cúich páirst chutramach ans na haharochian an rothadach an an Dunéidean. Ha Ian a rucochuch an company Sir Holloch Spokes, a cha istéochuch an an 9 diag seachad sa seach, agus fan óir sin ha nimmer dacha son gadasan na sear an ga lúg bicycle the bhí éfachoch, ach han tuavastí dhéanú has.
We need to move on from the lycra and the day glow. I'm not sure that we'll lose the helmets, but we want people to be really not thinking about cycling. Just a bicycle is something that they use, just as they use a bus, as opposed to it being an activity or a pursuit that they have to positively engage with. The great benefit in Edinburgh is that we have already got a really good network of off-road paths, and therefore there's somewhere for people to cycle, to learn how to ride. It's a place for children to cycle, and that has been one of the strong factors in building the growth of cycling. I think what we often lack in this country is money to be spent on supporting people to change their habits. To improve their cycling, to get more proficient at cycling.
Chanad sa quite for Glascow gyfel corla fala Canadian a bhí gymal áchar who've roharach agus haid a cúr cúig as a chiat gen budget san siúl hat cúig as a chiat a dulgu roharach. Hasin na smó na ha rialtas na halaba a cúr a steach gu roharach. So ha sealtan gyfel iad grí príomh amas a hachga. Agus haid a géno rutin eile haid a tokol slíon roharach cúideoch haid a cúr rointsin farvel cét draivi, farvel cét astor siasgu 10,000 sanúr.
The council already has a policy of prioritising pedestrians, cyclists and public transport. And we would like to see that policy really put into practice. You are going to have to shift the private cars and other vehicles off some of the roads to give a bit more dedicated space, whether it's segregated lanes or whether it's just simply painted lanes, so that cyclists can feel confident to ride along places like Lothian Road. Keith Brown, the Transport Minister, is very positive in his support of cycling. It's a really good idea that he had this summit with local council leaders the other week, and also that he announced more money for Edinburgh. But I still think there's a few more pennies to be squeezed out of his coffers.
Edinburgh's made great strides, more so perhaps than any other city in Scotland, but we have to do more to make people, not just make it safer, but make it feel safer for people if we're to encourage that greater number of cycling journeys. Perhaps the most important thing is to make it clear to commuters that we're thinking about their entire journey from the front door to where they intend to go, to make that either by public transport or a combination of public transport and active travel as well. And if you can do that, that's some of the low-hanging fruit which will help us to achieve the aspiration that we all have for at least 10% of these journeys to be made by active travel and cycling. It's not about favouring cyclists over motorised transport or vice versa. We're trying to say that everyone has different needs. Of course, it's tragic that we have had cycle deaths, and it's in our interest to make sure we can minimise those wherever possible.
Chai now neach bicycle y farag at Roger na halapu an an davile sigahiag. Agus get a han realtas urban I gianu shawchur kjarst les gemichin yehich in niceway code. Haluk immert a giorig in jage tor y farog I gianu.
A Immerstown agus a Jespetown a hoof cora an a tubistan an rat agus a cujigunia smurgeon before gambishin a glusid gan an tuichig ha ansen rein Jorpa cu an paston generate Jorpa farvel maha tubista tachers han cora an driver mirasuringa shalta nach be esnes corach asna kielchig gevel driver in this boeltje of the Kuramach na ráitsin agus chanan sa go big Jorut bhain na big atachars econúnám ha Isacham go big Jespet láchar Jes mioin seo hannelism J ho lua sa hícsin a cha mismúnti gurí Jespet bechor bhí tacharst.
We gave the commitment in the previous CAPS document to look at the question of strict liability. And we did say that we would look at the experience of other countries and see what the benefits were that arose from that. And from the studies we've done, we've not seen that discernible benefit. So we do not propose to bring in strict liability, although it is an ongoing debate and will soon be debated in the Scottish Parliament again.
Y ganion gialion y fynistiad, chanela fwlasioch gyfel pniafachus ag rohadog yn cwmysri dwchon yn ele. Chanel anan Glascow ach engine y balchan ansan rynyorbe a haedd motorway os glwgsafale fwchyn gyddich. Pys y chai chwrhys yn em siacat sy cehydd y chosg fasgir $7 million not.
The M74, if you talk to people I do all the time who feel it's a huge benefit to them, that's not to say that should be instead of active travel support. We have to do both of those things. And we are very pleased with the outcome of the M74 in reducing journey times and also reducing congestion and pollution in Glasgow because of that development.
Solving a traffic jam or traffic congestion by creating more space for the cars is the equivalent of solving a weight problem by loosening your belt. In rush hour, you can move around 5 times as many people on bikes than in cars. That has a huge impact on the city's economy. Right? Rush hour is like the main killer.
Ha bui economicach an áte maid a cyclig no ma haid a cosioch ha nilit a dol siachat a bhela no siachat an skire haid a dol tronskire haid a static na buchin so ha bui economicach an agus a bui social to an ha in this castul of stat agus a brin dunya agus ha dunya nas buchige sinne or siachke a vi an a car an a shosa vacuum an sa acadéin.
An in Copenhagen gaan je wein geweller mogelijk na bonoken economicoch. Ach, haid adar jawachig boor I janu gu socialte, agus gu culturoch. Ha rohadok na smo na vi gidoch na goi shul, hai gan kuharochig agus a shalting style. Ha an blog Copenhagen Cycle Chic vi gische ma jene cultur style sohariche a hansa valesho.
To me, one of the really essentials about bicycle feminism is that I'm at eye level with my fellow citizens. We see each other, you can nod, you can flirt, you can smile, you can be on the foam, you can have your latte, you can do your nails if you want to, you can do anything on the bike. I don't dress up for, for the journey, I dress up for when I ride, for the occasion when I ride. So I never wear Gore-Tex or practical shoes or whatever. I bike in my heels and I do that year round. And this is a cold country. We have a lot of ice and snow in the winter.
Ha tór gaine inis I fiaching di coulter bicycle a lehid steochuig sráidin na Halabe. Ha Joanna Holton glósid chunna bhela fó cheanna tua Dakota. Agus hiachir I dainele vrosnochuig in style acha héin steochuig. Bha fragart na fémalach gannacha ach bha cúideach fragaroch a árinneach ballingonéjan.
I started as kind of a dress, boots and tights kind of woman. And once I got on my bike, I realized, again with the hills and with the climate, that wasn't necessarily totally safe. So I defined a style that accommodated my bike. People should just not even have to think about how they're going to get into the city, but just get on their bikes and go. And I think with hills and climate, there's definitely challenges. Living outside of town, I had to put everything on my back and cycle in, and I hated the change of clothes and changing shoes and all of that. So I had to be able to organize, but I found that my style was slowly changing and evolving. So when I would go shopping for clothes, it was all bikeable.
Ha Joanna blog a hóiseochuig Bikeable Joe, son coirsnoch steochuig a ha gháilisteach hula dinge agus ha cuad son éideach úr na the hica go bhí fanse Michael le Valle bicycle.
I thought only my mom would be reading my blog, and quite thrilled that other people seemed interested. It was a way for me to talk about cycling in Edinburgh, how it's kind of changed my view of the city, and I do hope it inspires people to cycle. I know I've kind of gently bullied my friends through the blog. I like being part of the community. I think it's a really active community that's feisty and wants to see change in not only the city but in Scotland.
An Glascow cúideach ha ada fór do lúp jalavachi a ha goal an páist hain ans nathracha cultural agus style a ha goal gréim mointir a Valle. Ha Alec Farmer a rí track von bike station an Glascow son groichen agus bakalin a havan do lúp bicycle a ha an dachúch practicioch ach a ha an cuidir lé fo gainelle.
Tweed is woven on looms that are powered by bicycle pedals. So these guys are sitting there all day long pedalling, creating this amazing fabric. It comes over to Glasgow to our workshop, and then we turn it into bags that are then used on a bicycle made by pedals. There's something quite nice and cyclical about that, I think. What I'm trying to do is create products that are really functional for cyclists, that work as they need them to work, but at the same time look very beautiful. There's no reason why those two things can't go together.
Ham fialsan och biochi coolú na company a cuad go sonharíte na biacin fo gaine a ha ceannachóbe. An a bhí jalavachuig a bhacha a ha iadsan na georí an san dói seár.
The great thing about sharing a space with the Glasgow bike station is that we're surrounded by cyclists all day long, and with people coming up and chatting to us, we really get a sense for what people are after in a bag, and then we're really able to hone our designs.
Ha cafe an rohadog lehid siempre an Glascow no ronde an Dunedin. Edda bhí an Joe Chlachig an san núine gadid a had edda bhí foscailte. Ach haine díoch na baltin móra an na mian na Halabe a bhain a ha fiaching an seo. An san David Davila sa gaiag. Chai cafe velocity a head a rí le Laura ní necol osclug son rohadog a vrosnochuig an an pfiaf ballan na gealdog. Hai nuis na áte trang agus hai edahí sadavachol an bhí steochuig coirsnoch rohadog an an jearaníis.
Chóisig sin velocity chuns gon ra tar duine iad a bicycle ach thará áte san iad a chruinnechuig. Bha sin is múneach gon bí tar mór duine a géirí a gáil iad a bicycle ach thará na fislachuig cimir a háisig iad agus bha sin na géirí cineamach na fislachuig sin. Díreach da teachgang na de háisig velocity, háisig siempre café, bicycle café an sa Glascow. When the Hoshich Velocity had cafe agus bicycle workshop ans in Alba iche.
Ha inad opro wan ugemok an sa café son gnoring do loop claki a vi geinsochuch ma jenen tuv mechanicjoch de rohodok. At sa had goal coffee agus piece cake.
These are bikes we use to loan, so they're meant for people who are new to cycling and they want to see if they like it before they go to the expense of buying their own bikes. Our teapot light is it suits us because it's a nice bell, not a light, a bell, teapot bell. It combines nice tea shop and bicycles.
Colloch the Shavite station for the loop bicycle Erenish Thurlashach or Shabi agus Yuat Fusklich Triplachin mechanic be a good Kibiake.
Hij kom uit van zijn velocity. Agus bij hele dunje kurfachgal gu na dunje. Agus hashin jirach scanjal. Hij 12 kilo. Hij dunje China stay rish bicycle. Agus hamis mention hara na dunje shin bicycle of Lena Arash. Agus in this hayet bicycle. Agus hayet Hurudoi na bicycle aka.
Ja big algo wheelcraft fashgear Lennoxtown ha acha kunyochi the loop bicycle edda via krie gneovachish cruhochi kaile eke son shiablon na fichet. Ha alister edda gneovachis rohadok eke in a dol von yarsh kon yarsh tarn blionichen. Agus ha tor loop clacky has the fake in the buhe mar farst vorge and hoyersnop rohadok.
There's no time limit on a wheel. It's ready when it's ready. You cannot say, "Oh, I'll build a wheel in an hour." Some of them have got anomalies and things not working quite right and all sorts of stuff. And you just got to take your time and just relax and enjoy it. If I spent as much time on my bicycle as I do building wheels for people to go on their bicycles, I'd be going with the guys in the Tour de France saying, "Get out the road, I'm a bit of a hurry today," you know. That's a smart wheel, that's a real one. That's a new size. What's up with it? I enjoy my job. That makes a big difference. Meet so many really nice people. Some incredibly talented people as well. I found one of your favourite tyres, see up there? Put it aside for you, your Michelins that you like. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's quite a good way of actually learning patience if you didn't have any, because it doesn't do you any good to fling them up against the wall, you know. You still have to fix them at the end of the day. We're very, very fortunate that we've been here for a long, long time and we've got a regular customer base. Some of them just come up for a coffee. It's really good. You know, we always have a sort of permanent pot of coffee and they go. It's a company that makes a difference. Absolutely makes a difference. If I was just doing wheels, the same wheel, same hub, same rim, same spokes every day, day in, day out, without any sort of company that comes in, you'd probably end up, you know, trying to make them how square as you possibly could and how out of dish you possibly could and everything. Instead of try to do the best you can to get them reasonably accurate. It is not as easy as people think it is.
This is a value pack, you only get one. A bad value pack, you only get one, but you pay for three.
On a better day, not today, we usually get quite a lot of original, long-term elderly cyclists up, and they're absolutely fantastic because they go back to the 1950s cycling and even before. In one case, our oldest customer, believe it or not, is 93 and still cycling. Hello there, James. St Jimmy's 73, racing in the velodrome now. You should grab him. He's quite interesting character.
I'm maybe not as good as I used to be, but there wouldn't be any champions if there wasn't any dumplings.
He's very fit for his age. Yeah. Good company.
Aye, I come up here regular, especially when I want to kill a bit of time in case my wife wants me home early to wash the ceilings in the kitchen or something, I wouldn't go to any other cycle shop.
Absolutely.
But see that coffee, I was just thinking maybe I should take a cup of that before I go to the track. Maybe it'll give me a boost that wee bit further, you know, but I might get pulled up for using the banned substance.
2 cups should beat Willie.
Aye.
Ag i velodrome tyf sér Glascow ha Jimmy Marshall Giannu Jeschel son session elle edden Roon le Harrigan an skipper Rohadok Glasgow United. Ha Jimmy ha eddevi dollet bicycle von lecheten agus vaad Rohadok legal shachad. Toshoch riist levi reishich chemichel en Roon da hudes gach shachoin kularina luig a lapanoch elle. Bavist a bhí réisich ag Pathge Hamden na the vat og.
Yours lying here.
I've got one like that, that's why I picked
Yes, just the old fogey.
I was a boxer up to the age of 13 and I get that many doings at it. That's when I decided, my dad says, take up cycling. So that's me, cycling for 60 years. I'm still a dumpling. But I must have made a mistake with my birth certificate. I just don't feel my age. It's just the one nice rhythm all the way. And that way you feel confident. You can just sit in there and let them suck you around the track. You know, we usually do a lap each. But see, when I first came into this track and seen it, and I'm not afraid to admit it, the tears was coming down my eyes. Just like a big baby. It's a whole new start for myself. I'm really keen, and it's good for burning up the fat. I've burnt up 2 stones since I started here, and I'm hoping to burn up another one.
Ag seachad sa trí agus a sé 60 bliana the bicycle, chanela cuat coloch gustat Jimmy Haas, agus bhuichin gadid hayad 10 míle I Giannu an an ócarichid minach.
It's good to come and watch the younger ones in the track here. You know, and I keep saying to them, keep at it. You might be a world champion amongst you.
You shouldn't be able to. See how he was at the saddle there, I should have done that up this side to build up enough speed. We'll be concerned about Tommy being underneath him.
Is there quite a technique to it all?
Aye. 16.42, that's pretty accurate for us. What will we tell him?
He's got a fat thumb, it's that fat. By the time he presses a button, that's what, a nanosecond.
I'm dying to get onto this track when I come. But see, when I've done my stint, it's great to get off. I feel I've done something, I've achieved something. You know, so... And it keeps the old ticker ticking here. And the doctor says it's not a heart I've got, it's a steam engine. Once again, thank God.
There you are. That's us. Punishment duty over. Aye, because something I've blocked hooking it, so
Ha kier Greaterix mis kuch Jinyain og vel youth son Rohadok Raj an an Alabe. Hunig club reishi gunagin mating vidiaje saharn. Son schwie training tro Rogen cool wat angenjer. Han blianig in hien kwant ma son kier, a sé gavi farpish mar sprinter an davile se 3G.
Han mo koma se, hij doch dolmach, even Latin, doch klein bike is en dat, doch dolmach, koma sportsel. Kunnen soon op putig maheen, is kleuies, in of na shad, hij still am viking maheen find the shad. Ik heb een maas over het nu has een dolmacher de zijn je top de aan brine gele. Ik ga dan nu has een deze gaan pikken is natuurlijk geen brine dunje of hij hulden je zonne deze gaan je dat brine zijn je smeun je gemeente had al tagers je had iets al jene zo. Het had kutje tien van skip back had de torst lutten naar bikes Sledenaski zo'n klachtje, zo'n training, zo'n fijn tasje gegeven. Maar zijn, ga ik maar voorstellen nog zo fijn, en kan hem zo fijn. Ik ga niet doen je fijn zo. Yn fiach sy'n stoch gyneim rydyn yn fi y gennyf gys yn bi'n codym sioch a hwyd yn yw.
Han clar am y treni y cyr edrych chwtioch ych gymor se edrych fi an sy'n ffriaf iechnor dy goi grin a halabu. Y gleg y chiad agos yn darna atcha an yn cwtch generation rog ys dwlyad gen flionna.
Maar sy'n hamyn dogys gyn fi mi a gwpyd yn un social racing yn blin ysy. Stoch a gyn am na siad ac i'r yn y zarsta. Maar sy'n stoch a swn i'n gael fein a stiach gyda talent skipper alapa with mar sin. I did have a coit at a dunya ha and sas and sports and vaste Bradley Wiggins, Chris Froome had dulle vier vaak die had die of ham er some be called the it sen had shishli command that of hound. Hast Canela Savelche had tod tupish noun had Karatinakam as the Madrig en a donation is had told and had Machin had told and a hachurst is had told oped hast down a famous date the Geneva. Yeike. Ulen Canal Catel Dunye bikes in that is had a Geneva Sulle Catelit bikes. Is shouldn't have had 2% attackers. Hij de Jenna Brut again kunnerstoch, no godoch, is hij de dogja. Thema je a torch who lin a clown back is na sculpture. A torch physical achke is on a vina mat in that. Ma hai the dog mat a bike, no ma hai to find license gonna had na says the dog mat a car. The clown the famous torch who glay.
If I was in Europe, in Belgium or Holland, I would expect to sponsor a child's race for, say, 10 to 12-year-olds every week in my village. And that would be supported by the parents and other businesses. That's where the likes of the Tour de France riders get their skills from. A long way, yeah. I'm afraid the culture of the pub, the club and the bookies is still with us for a long, long time to come.
Hij salja gewel schrie adde het hosiogoin haast, maar spiesing ik ieder duchenen na ronjorbe hu rohadok. Ha balchen halabe het janu urdes, ach wel taik vadanoch gariduin shin. Hij saljat geta gewel nader te gunje ha giori wie een saas aan een rohadok een schier dolle meid. She gestjenish en jailik en realtes rushenjeurites show, agus en kudat rohadok ek muloch en klaar groeig. Son gymia mar farsgar behel waiol ons na blionichen a harihien.
There's no doubt, of course, that every city at some point will have to do this, because this is the movement, this is what the future is about. But of course, it's a question of how do you arrive at that future? How do you get there?
Sooner or later, they will have to kind of embrace the cyclist culture and do something about it. Otherwise, there will be a clash, and we don't want a clash to happen. So cycling is growing despite all that, you know. But there is sometimes a bit of love and hate between cars and cyclists, and there are ways that these things could be avoided.
Like Boonachoosh, Themidunia, Vigra, Shunan Ruta Hashnagiri, agus Mahan Stri, Lacher Gilior, be look politics, a geistroch, agus be Ericat, a Lenten. Ach féimi sin a chúise dhéanamh Hananson.